Alright, we are in the process of gluing up some trim profiles. I needed to replicate this base cap. I'm using a combination of my mini table saw and router bits on jigs. All of these are full of bits, and I don't have a single bit that is the correct size or shape to do these profiles. This is a pretty standard looking base cap, but I can't find this exact size in store. I've got all manner of jigs. This is just one example. This bit is not the correct size for this particular profile, but on an angle, it's pretty close. The tricky bit to replicate is this piece. This is sort of a crown that was originally hanging in the dining room. So what I plan to do is take this, replicate it, and then in the kitchen where I have the built-in, I think that I want to try to do a forced perspective kind of thing. It's a little more than 3 feet wide. Over that span, the ceiling slants about an inch. I didn't know how bad it was until I really got into it, but I'm going to try to taper it following these profiles. I don't know that it'll work. I'm going to try it. I think I am going to make a router jig that puts my router at a slight angle. So the idea is to build a jig that will be at 90 degrees. It's not going to be perfect, but pretty close. If I have my router base kind of at this angle, then this will go in and notch that. Okay, so for safety's sake, we probably want the router to be as upright as possible. So as if this was flat table right here. And then we build everything below it as an angled surface. The router will sit there. So just sort of build a little platform to sit under my pieces. When I'm making jigs, I want to be as lazy as possible. I mean, I have all these random sized pieces of wood, and I do not want to make really any modifications to what I have. Okay, I just decided that I'm going to go ahead and build the jig specifically for the sawhorse. If I had just used like a 3/4 by 3/4 piece, this would be a lot for the router to eat through. Hogging it out like that makes it easier on the router. This is 7/8 by 3/4. There's no good way to clamp this, it seems, but what I ended up doing was shooting some pin nails along this edge down into here, because that part won't be cut. But I don't want to do that too much, because when I try to pry it off, I don't want to break this fragile part of it. But yeah, so far so good. I mean, that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, I would say that jig was successful. This is the part we're working on. This has a nicer flow to it. So we're gonna zip that part off on the table saw. Blades at 1/4 inch, about 3/8 from the fence. And I'm just gonna hold it on top. It's not cutting off very much, so this should be plenty safe. Just a little bit to clean up with sandpaper. Okay, now this profile is tricky. This is too small. This is a standard Ogie bit. Ogie, I'm not sure how you say it. And next size up, or, a size up, is too big. However, if I can get it on an angle, I can do it. This section will be added on after. So if I eat into that a little bit with the bit at the angle it needs to be, like that, for instance, that'll be covered up. I feel like I do everything in a really roundabout way. I'm gonna go ahead and route this. I did a tester bit inside, and it's not perfect, but I think it'll work for this. It seems to be the right angle. This part is probably too long. I'll just snip a little bit off with the saw, and I can always add more on the back end, so no big deal. I ended up having to back off and do climb cuts because it ended up being a lot of material for the bit. I came backward, which is the wrong way to run the router, and that's called a climb cut. And then after you take out some material in that direction, you can go forward, and it helps with tear out. I will cut the excess off of here, and then starting here and going all the way across, there'll be an 1/8 of an inch piece added for that thickness. I've had this thing for about 6 years now, and I have to say it's probably my favorite tool I've ever owned. This thing is incredible. It's super accurate. It's got really nice machining on all the parts, and there's a lot of accessories for it. The business owner who creates these passed away, and I'm not really sure if they're still producing them. So this is an amazing saw if you can get your hands on one. Burns Model Machines is the proprietor. Earlier I added this little strip here because I really should have probably made this piece an inch as well so that this transition was nicer. But as soon as I get these bigger profiles done with the crown, I'm going to have to figure out the forced perspective piece that goes on the front. Forced perspective is probably not the right term to use for this, but that's just what's in my head, so I'm going to keep calling it that probably. Overall, really, really pretty close to the original piece. I need to basically make this sort of a replica, miniature version This is the piece I'm going to use for the force perspective on the front. I think total, one side to the other, was roughly 40 1/4 cabinet. So this needs to be longer than that to account for the miter on the outside. I made it 42, so it'll be angled this way and angled in this dimension as well. Alright, so I think what I decided to do is secure it to the side of the table. As you may know now, the top section is thicker, and I'm going to add that back on afterwards. So I think what makes sense is to countersink deeper than my cut, which is I'm cutting an 1/8 off here, and at this end I'll be cutting more like 1/4, and make sure that my screw head is like in the meat that will not be cut off. So maybe like 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch in, which should still be plenty of holding power in the side of this. What we're concentrating on is just making this surface. Now I have a countersink bit, but I think I actually want to just use a regular drill bit and trim head screws so that I can get the smallest possible hole. This is pretty wide, won't matter on this side, but on the other side, the width of it would probably be visible. Now this is a 1x4, and then it will go into a 2x10 or something, so screws have plenty of meat to get into. It's definitely not that square, but for what we're doing, it's totally fine. And the screws are set just below where I'm cutting, so that should taper it down. It's subtle. The 2-inch thicker version down to the 1-inch thinner version. Alrighty. There was a little bit of flex in this. I probably should have put another screw somewhere. I think what I want to do is go ahead and do the entire edge all the way across with this profile, and then put it in my funny little jig on an angle, and then run it with the rigid router on that little sled. We'll give it a shot and see what it looks like. That didn't go very well. I kind of suspected it would be something I would need to fix, but I ended up taking the big router bit way too far. I guess I was feeling reckless. I don't know, just kept going. But this side is good and the other end is good, so I'm going to draw some straight lines between and see what I need to fix. I tried to taper off the big bit, but that didn't work, and I just kept going. So, sort of knew it was going to be a fail. But anyway, I'm going to figure out how to fix it. I'm not that worried. You know, we'll figure it out. that's what needs to be removed. I'll cut that off. And then I'm going to have to add in, probably square off a piece of this so that I can add in. And then it can all be sanded and stained, and I think it'll all blend together. And this was an experiment in the first place, so I never really expected it to go amazing. Made some slivers. Gonna be the first layer. I'll clean them up later, but for now I'm just gonna glue them in. Smooth that out with sandpaper. Maybe run the hand plane over it once or twice. I'm going to round this over a little bit more. I've got some pins in here. I'm going to knock those a little deeper. I'm afraid to hit them with the plane. I glued all these together, not really thinking too much about grain orientation, so I'm fighting myself. Some is going this way, some is going this way. I'm going to be behind the fridge too, and all this trim is beat up, so the worse it looks, probably the better. We're just going to tack this guy to the edge of the table so that I can route the profile. About the time of the project and the time of the night where I can't find anything and I just feel crazy. So it's a little hectic. All the lines look pretty straight. And then it just gets a little weird where they transition from the curves. But it seems like you wouldn't really be able to tell that, especially after it's all sanded and cleaned up.